The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling!
David can't run the world title.
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass.
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match.
McMahon, the family, the Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it. Jumpy, beat. Goldberg steered Russo on the table.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
Hello, everybody. Look, I have a beautiful woman in my house, and it's not my wife. This is Vince Russo, anything but freaking wrestling, / Swerve, Vixen's Rule. It doesn't even matter. I don't even care. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Nikita LeFleur. Nikita, say hello to the people.
Hi, people.
Me and you. I've got you in my office. Nikita LeFleur.
Yes.
Look at you.
You have me here.
Look at you.
Now what are you going to do with me?
Well, Nikita, we're going to talk. And listen, I had it. Let's call space bad. I had to beg you to do this, right?
Begging usually entails somebody on their knees. I didn't see you begging.
I didn't beg you,
Why?
but Nikita, you're very low profile
Yeah.
these days. You're
Yeah.
very humble. I don't like you being humble.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Nikita, I became most familiar with your work when I came here to Colorado. But when did you start in the wrestling business?
Was that 98, 99?
98, and you've been everywhere.
Not everywhere quite.
Give everybody, and speak up, Nikki. Speak into the mic. Tell everybody where you are, seriously, because I'm going to tell you why I'm a huge fan of yours.
Okay. Moving to the state of Colorado, I ran across a guy named Bobby Black.
Right?
He was meeting up with Dan Magnus, and they were opening up a wrestling school way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a wrestling organization called Central Wrestling Organization, CWO. So that's where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
And there really wasn't a lot of independent scenes in Colorado, and there really hasn't.
But how are we're in Colorado? You had a whole history before we got to Colorado. Let's back up.
Okay.
You're a Minnesota girl.
Yes.
And we all know the reputation of wrestling in Minnesota. Who trained you in Minnesota?
Actually, nobody trained me in Minnesota. My training started in Colorado.
Or in Colorado.
It did.
Minnesota.
Yes.
Good friend of Medusa.
Yes.
A lot of similarities between you and Medusa. Would you admit that?
Yes.
Is that a Minnesota thing, or is that
That's just a bad bitch thing.
in Minnesota though?
Yeah. I don't know.
I think so. I've met a lot of women wrestlers from Minnesota, and there's just I don't know what it is.
The cold.
Maybe it is, but like you and Medusa are like the two baddest asses I know.
She is a fantastic human being. She really took me under her wing. She beat the crap out of me, and it was probably the best experience, and we've been friends ever since.
So how did that relationship start?
It really did. It started in the ring. I did not.
And you know what the funny thing about it is?
What?
Medusa would tell me stories of who she started with in the ring that used to beat the crap out of her. Sherry.
Oh yes.
And like she would tell me stories of like Sherry like literally shooting on her to see if she could take it or she was going to quit. So I guess you got that handed down by Medusa.
Yes, probably to a degree, but she also did it in a very respectable fashion as well.
Right.
Like I didn't have any complaints in regards to that. I mean, it was, we were supposed to have like a 10-minute match. We ended up going 45.
Yeah.
And being very green and not having a lot of knowledge at that time, it was quite the experience.
I got to ask you this question. I got ADD, so like when you say something, I go down a different
It's all
road.
good.
I got to ask you this question. No disrespect to the female wrestlers of today, and I love female wrestling. I'm a huge fan of female wrestling. I say that all the time. No disrespect to that, but the way female wrestlers work today. You just said to me, you and Medusa, 2 female wrestlers, had a 45-minute match.
Yes.
The way they work today, would they be capable of that?
I can't answer that. And the reason why I can't answer that, I think there's a lot of phenomenal female athletes that are out there, and what they can do today. There's a lot of things that I can't do what they can do. Could they go a 45-minute match? Maybe not doing everything that they're doing in their 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And if their training was, I believe in the past. Without the past, we don't have the present.
Right.
And learning how to work like that was probably the best way for me to learn.
Right.
I don't know about what they're being taught.
Yeah. But let me ask you this, Nikita. The 45-minute match.
Yes.
Like, how much of that match is laid out? How much of that match is being called in the ring? Because see, to me, like, that's the part that's. Are you breaking things in my office? No. That's the part that's unbelievable to me, the calling it in the ring. And I don't think people grasp a 45-minute match because you don't see that anymore today.
Right.
So, like, literally, when you go into a match that long, like, what's the percentage of time where you actually know what we're going to do? That, I mean, to me, like, I don't know how you do that.
At that time, I was green. And so my job was to shut up and listen, and that was it. And I think that is a good way to learn, and I think that's why a lot of people should learn. I don't know if that's how people are learning now, but that is what happened. So for the full duration of the match, I had no clue, and I tried to play off of her. She was trying to see where I was at on expertise, where I had been training, and so forth. And she realized she was in the ring with somebody who was very green, but she did. She called everything. And some of the things she didn't call, and it was just on the fly.
God, that's amazing to me. Seriously, like, 45 minutes of calling most of that match is just amazing to me.
I'll tell you with my
no, I want you to remember where you are, but I want to ask you now, when you're in there with a seasoned vet like Medusa and you're green, because this happened to me a lot. Like, I worked that one match with Flair. And, like, all I freaking cared about was I can't make him look bad. I can't make him look bad. I cannot make Ric Flair look bad. That's all I cared about. Was that kind of where you were coming from?
I was,
or was this really your opportunity to make yourself?
I didn't think that way. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in the ring with a veteran from WCW who also fought overseas. Everything that she's brought to the
Japan.
table. Also WWF at the time. WWE, whatever you want to call it. And I sat there going, I'm getting in the ring with this woman who has all these years of experience. And I still shake when, yes, I put in a VHS tape, but I look at that match and I still shake to this day, knowing what my nerves were like, trying to walk out to the ring and perform with somebody that you look up to, and with all those years of experience and having no idea, what you were supposed to do.
I know you to some degree. I get the impression that you're the kind of performer that when you go back and look at a tape, this isn't, oh my God, I was terrific. Oh my God, I was great. Oh my God, I'm great. Well, you probably critique every single day. I could have did this better. I could have did that better.
I am that way. It doesn't mean that I don't think that I have done some good things, but I will never take for granted, because there are some amazing wrestlers out there. And so for me to be the best that I can, I do need to nitpick and try to see how it feels or what it looks like, and constantly work on those things. And sometimes it goes good and sometimes not so much.
Now Sherry from Minnesota too, right?
Sherry, I'm not.
I think she was.
I think she was as well.
You never crossed paths with her?
I never got to meet Sherry.
Okay. Have you ever worked with anybody tougher than Medusa? I mean, that would have to be one tough.
I think there's all different levels of toughness out there. Medusa, she was actually one of my favorites. I think Jazz was another one as well. Hit hard and saved places, but she was fantastic to work. That woman can move. I love that feeling. Love it when you're in the ring with somebody like that. I can't really judge that because there's so many different people, and some, it depends on the intensity of the match and where it's at. Is it TV? If it's a dark match, but just working with each individual.
What was the bulk of your career at OVW?
Yes, it was. I learned a lot from Danny Davis, and as you know, Jimmy, and Rip Rogers. And I'll have to say, a good trainer, you'll love and hate them at the same time. I think the time and the place and the people who are in there is what made that time probably one of the best times of my life. The training, though, I'll never forget being in the ring with Rip Rogers, and he made it possible. There was a lot of things I was doing, a lot of rookie mistakes. He allowed me to be in the ring and call things on the fly, and he told everybody basically to shut up, and gave me the opportunity to have that ring time and to learn the way that I needed to learn. And that is a lot of knowledge. There was so much knowledge that was passed on. He made me a better wrestler all the way through and through.
Now, Nikita, I know you worked with Heyman too, right?
Paul Heyman was the one that helped me. Actually, he was the one who basically brought me into WWE.
How did that work out? Like, where did those paths cross for the first time?
I don't know how. It was, I swear, I'm going to call it luck. Some people will, some people won't. I was chasing my dream. I had gone to HWA, Heartland Wrestling Association, with Les Thatcher at the time. At the time, it was a developmental territory, and then just like OVW, I was not able to have matches for Heartland Wrestling Association. So I was taking the knowledge that I was learning there and still competing in Colorado. And I was sending still footage. At the time, there was, VHS and then turned into discs. And Paul happened to find, and I don't know if Medusa had anything to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, because they were close. They were close.
Right.
Those guys,
and I don't know, but it was just timing and the way things happened. And all of a sudden I got a phone call, and he had brought me in. He actually brought me in all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin for that time. Yeah.
So you had a little stint in WWE.
Yeah. And so that's how I basically got contracted, and I was sent to Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Yeah. Now, who are some of the women that you worked with? I love some stuff I saw because she was always a favorite of mine. Ivory. You did some great stuff with us. She's from that old tough girl school, though.
She is fun, knowledgeable, upbeat. I have nothing bad to say.
Now, could you have been a Glow Girl? What would your gimmick have been as a Glow Girl, you think?
Oh, I have no idea.
Did you ever watch Glow?
I did. I did a little bit.
Now, you let me ask you this, Nikita. This is a shoot, everybody. Let me talk to the people at home. Nikita, you stay right here. This is a shoot, everybody. Nikita, I swear. Nikita, you know what I like about you? Let's demonstrate for the people. Here, I'm going to get up. I like to hear. I'm going to move your chair out for a second. This is what I like when I see you work. Okay, me and Nikita are going to lock up. Here's what I love. You stand over there. This is what I love when I watch you work. This is the thing I love most about you. When you get down to the ground and you lock up and every freaking muscle in your and I look at the lockup. Pull up a chair here, please. I look at the lockup and I swear to God, I look at you and I'm like, this freaking woman would kick my freaking ass as a shoot. It's very, very believable. So the reason why I'm saying that is you're such a believable. I love the girls today. I don't think a lot of it is believable because I think a lot of it is high spots that don't make sense. I believe you could kick my ass. Medusa could have kicked my ass if she wanted to. With that being said, Glow was very campy and very hokey and based on characters. So, like, if you watch something like that, like, are you a fan of that?
I was more a fan of the reason why I loved Medusa back in the day. She had a look. She could school some of the guys. She was tough in the ring with the ladies. Everything for the timing and the place. Like it really was with the ladies. Over the top campy, I can't always do. I think there was a lot of good, some of the characters and stuff were fantastic. I can't be necessarily cheesy. As you can tell, I'm not really the happy cheerleader, go, rah. I've just never been that. I'm more in the tomboy.
Nikita, do you think the toughness comes? Let me ask you a question. Because like I said, man, you and Medusa are so close in so many ways. Back, during the days of Medusa, and you're a veteran of the business, there were less females at that time. I mean, now you put on Raw. I mean, there's 6, 8 girls on a roster. Back during this time, there's maybe 2, 3, 4 girls. There's fewer females.
Right.
Do you think you build up maybe more of a toughness than they do today because there really was more of a fighting for that spot and a more of being accepted and respected by the guys because there was there was probably one woman to every 10 guys back then. Do you think that had something to do with it? Was it like a survival of the fittest gimmick?
Wow, that's a very good
I'm a great
question.
interviewer. This is how I roll, Nikita. I'm a great interviewer. I've been called the Oprah Winfrey of podcasting.
Oprah Winfrey, huh?
Can I point out to everybody at home, Nikita's covering up a stomach she doesn't have with a pillow, which is ridiculous because this woman is in the most unbelievable shape of any woman I've seen in my life. But again,
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. Say it one more time.
Did the way the business was, and there were less females, and you were basically competing in a man's world?
We are, and I think parts of the business have changed, but it's still very the same.
Right.
I think obviously we have a great women's movement for people that can work. But like I said, without the past, we don't have the future. I still think that things should be slowed down. I'm a little bit more, I work that way. The man's industry alone, I think regardless, you're going to have your ups and your lows no matter what. So that's a very difficult question because it's all different scenario, timing, who you're working with. And I still think, you still have to, there's a lot of still politics to this day. I still think though of everybody that came before me and some of the things that they had to deal with that I didn't. And then I dealt with something a little bit different that maybe, they did once upon a time, could guide you. And I don't know if the girls are still going through that or not. I think there's just a lot of different ground now. And I think it happens naturally in our industry anyway.
Well, Nikita, you said something a couple of times. I got to ask you about this. There would not be the present without the past.
Yes.
And the bottom line is no doubt about it. I think there's definitely more opportunity for women today. I think it's easier today for women to get into wrestling, but people like you, people like Medusa had to fight that fight.
But let me explain something though too, because if you're looking at it from that point of view, I look at from not just females, but also a lot of guys as well. We've got all the online, the internet stuff, everybody that can market themselves now more. But I've also watched the WWE, and at the time for developing the talent that they were and teaching the guys and getting these talent, it was so sad. Regardless if I wasn't on TV, I'm very thankful that I was in the place at the time where I was and everything and the way things happened, because a lot of those people that worked so hard to get to their ultimate pinnacle dream and to be spit out like a little meat grinder. And I think and at least there's more places that you can go to with the marketing and everything. But I saw a lot of wrestlers, and I don't know if it's correct for me to say that, but that's the way I looked at it with a lot of wrestlers. They have so much talent, but if they don't perform in a certain amount, all of a sudden they disappear and they're gone. Yeah. And that's a lot of work to just be spit out that way. But, and that's heartbreaking for me in some ways, but it opens up a lot of opportunities in others.
But on the other side of the coin, it is a lot easier for women to get in the business. And I know that as a fact. Like I said, just the conversations I've had with Medusa and what she had to go through. People don't understand this either. Right. When I was working at the WWE with Medusa came back to the WWE when for 3 years, there was no women's division. Right. It didn't exist. Right. So, of course, today there are more opportunities. There are more girls on TV. Listen, Nikita, if I'm you, that has to be a little bittersweet for me. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm looking at now, okay, I'm proud because I paved the way for those girls. If Medusa didn't do what she did, and me and Sherry and Moolah and all those greats, Jackie, Luna, go every down the line. These girls today would not have this opportunity. But now you also have to look at it as, God, if I was breaking into the business today, there's a hell of a lot more opportunity than there was when I first broke it.
Yes.
Like, how do you weigh that?
You don't. You really don't. For me, like when I felt it, like I said, it was the time, the place, and the people. And it felt like the stars kind of aligned up on why things happened a certain way. Where now, if it is easier, they don't. I'm not going to say they don't work for it. Everybody works for it, but it's just a little bit easier to market yourself. And now you can instantly, we didn't have the internet back then.
Right.
I still wonder how the heck I ended up where I was. But I was very fortunate to cross paths with a lot of
and let's talk about that because I went off on a tangent. But OVW, I talked about Ivory. Who else went through there that you worked with?
I worked around the time. Let's see here. It was Ivory, and it was Jillian Hall. And it was Jazz, Passion. Let's see here. We had so many. Mickey James. One person I wish I would have been able to work was Beth Phoenix. I was going out and she was kind of coming in.
What about, did you ever work with Victoria?
Victoria was actually, yes, I did. I actually worked her a couple of times, once on Six Flags, once on TV with also poor Rico Constantine.
You're one of my favorite women, and she's another from the tough school. Well, she'll kill you.
Well, Rico, and let's see her. Who else? There was a lot of people that came through because WWE would send people down and then rotate up onto the road, and so I really got to work with a little bit of everybody.
Who was your favorite? Who was the easiest?
My favorite, the easiest.
Titus. We're going to talk about that in a minute because listen, Nikita.
At OVW or here, there's a big difference.
This might be the highlight of your career, making Titus Machiavelli look good. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. But no, who did you really like when you walk into the building and you see your name with so and so? Who who is that one person that you knew every time you'd knock it out of the park because of the chemistry, understanding each other's psychology? Who was that person?
Actually, all of them. I really did not have anybody that I felt like I couldn't work with or there was a problem with. Of course, there's always frustrations with certain individuals and times, but overall, I had a blast. I really did. It's so hard. That's hard. That's a hard question too because it's hard to pick. Like everybody has a different style and what you want to work.
Is it because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings?
No, it's
there
not
had to
that.
be somebody that you loved working with.
Like I said,
who's the first person that comes to mind you love working with?
Well, we had a lot of fights and disputes, and I liked a lot of different storylines. Ivory, that was one of a great match I had. That was a lot of fun. Oh, Vince, that's hard. That's hard. That's a hard one. It's just a hard one because I love Passion's aggression. I love Jazz's hard hits. I loved, even Jillian Hall. I mean, she would bring something else different to the table, and we could usually work pretty easily together for the most part. Jackie Gata was around there at that time too, and we had to do some pretty fun matches as well where we were on the same team but still against each other.
Did you ever work with Trish at all?
Trish, I never got to work with. Met her quite a few times, was pulled backstage, flown into certain places. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do with me, but no, I never got to work with her.
Who's the one person you wish you could have worked with that you never got the opportunity?
This is going to be completely off the roster altogether.
That's okay.
Well, one, I already said Beth Phoenix was definitely one.
Now, why Beth Phoenix?
I just, her charisma, her ring work, psychology. I think still one of the best matches I think I've ever seen where people just, they had the fans in the palm of their hand and you could feel the electricity in the air. Was Mickey James and Beth Phoenix. And if anyone watches that match, I know they can definitely appreciate that one. But the person I really wanted to work with was Finley. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but because he was on the road and teaching these girls, I saw what he could do with people from Tough Enough that were coming in that knew nothing, and between part of his just the way he works, I just wanted to work with him under his wing at least for a little bit, because he also made so many more female wrestlers better than where they are, and trying to train them on the road and just everything that he's done. I don't know if he enjoyed that or didn't, or if it was just part of the job, but he was, I watched him with Nydia from Tough Enough and how good she got. And she was a lot of fun just to interact with. But just rolling around with her and doing some chain wrestling, you could tell Fit Finley where some of his mannerisms came in, and I loved it. It's perfect.
All right, Nikita, we're going to talk about last night. We had the first television tape in Rocky Mountain Pro, which you were at.
Yes, I was watching.
And you were, listen, let's be honest, you were there at the beginning of this company. You had a lot to do with the history. You had a lot to do with us getting there last night. Again, somebody's got to pave the way, or it's never going to happen. You were there from day one.
Okay.
Because this started with you. Let's be honest. You were there at the very beginning. What was the very beginning of New Revolution? Was it New Revolution?
NRW.
Yeah. I always get that mixed up because I know it used to be New Rules. What was it?
That was man. I wasn't there
from
the very beginning.
Okay,
no,
but you were there how long ago?
Well, let's see here. At least 3.5, almost 4 years.
I mean, you were there a long time ago.
Well, Matt had tried to ask.
She's talking about Matt Yaden. I'm sorry, I get confused. The great Matt Yaden, everybody. The owner and proprietor of Rocky Mountain Pro.
Yes.
He was out of his mind yesterday between you and me. Climbing up cages, carrying on.
You don't have to live with them.
See, I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring that up, but now you opened the door. Okay, there's a relationship between Matt Yaden and the beautiful Nikita LeFleur, and you brought that up.
No,
I didn't. Did you, when you first got? Let me ask you this: when you first started at what was it called?
NRW. I just called it NRW.
When you first started at NRW, and then you're sitting there last night, national television, Rocky Mountain Pro, and you see the growth when you first started. You were at that last milestone not too long ago, where the company had come. Like, what emotions and feelings are going through your mind? Because you work with a lot of them.
Actually, what's fantastic. I'm glad you said it just the way you did, because Colorado wrestling is technically there hasn't been a territory out here. Yeah. There was very small independence.
Why?
It's just, I guess, I mean, it's probably the same reason why WWE doesn't come here. There wasn't a lot of fan base. Now that's changing. But when I left to make the dream happen with, I had a little guidance from Kevin Kelly. He's like, hey, you need more work. You need to go and make it happen. And without a win, without a promise, I packed my stuff and went. Sarge, Jeff McCaleb, he went with me to HWA, and what we learned there, he was bringing back here. And it was kind of like what I like to call the evolution of wrestling in the state of Colorado, because that knowledge was being passed on where a lot of people, just very typical independents, just bumps and high spots, all of a sudden are getting a better foundation, right? So I went to OVW. Jeff came back. He opened up his school at the time, which was Fusion. Matt participated that. He goes, wow, he's really intense, because he is, for a reason. And he makes you so much better. You love him and hate him at the same time. But I have the utmost respect for him, because where nobody wanted to give a lot of females or get in the ring, he treated me like one of the guys. And that is where our hard hit started from the very beginning, from CWO to going to HWA, him bringing back the knowledge. He did his school. Matt participated, took what he wanted from his school to develop what has been his driving force on what he wanted and what his visions were. And to see Sarge, who I've worked with, myself, everything that I know from watching this grow in this state, was probably the most exhilarating experience to watch Mr. Yaden and his driven dream, regardless if it was for himself or to do this company. He's putting a lot of things on the map. They're making history for the independent scene out here and for TV. And to watch it just it's an evolution that just happened. And from here on out, it can technically only get better. The more people seek out knowledge and train in the facility and the things that we didn't have when we were first starting in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Nikita, how does it work out? Like, let me tell you something. This is why I fell in love with, Mercury Pro Wrestling Academy. This is why I absolutely fell in love with it. And I want to ask you this question. Before I met Matt, before I went down to the school, before I started, participating as a, teacher, I worked indies like around the country.
Right.
And the one thing, man, I used to go to these indie shows, and Nikita, I mean, every match was like, high spot, high spot, high spot, high spot. By the time you went home, like you could remember like nothing stuck out, not because they did it repeatedly and over, and there were no stories, and it was just a spot and to get the awesome chance and this and that. And I really started losing hope for where was the wrestling I grew up in,
Right.
the match, the idea of winning the match, the psychology of what happened. I'm really thinking this is a lost art. So now I go, I get hooked up. Nick Aldis and Mickey, you're very
Right.
tight with. They told me about Matt Vince. You need to blah, blah, blah. I go down and I see the way Matt is training these kids. And I'm like, oh my God, professional wrestling still exists in 2016. Why? How does styles vary from state to state to state to state? I don't understand. Because I'm telling you right now, in New York, they're not working like we're working here at Rocky Mountain Pro. Like why may one state be a flip-flop and fly in high spot? This is awesome. You deserve this state. And here in Colorado, we're back to the roots of professional wrestling and what how does that happen? Just gets passed down.
Without our past, we do not have the present.
Yeah.
And you don't have the knowledge, and you don't have the people showing you what a feeling, how it's supposed to feel, and not what you're thinking in the ring. If you're thinking and not feeling, there's a big difference between the two. And you really don't know as a rookie, but you do when you get in the ring with a vet and they can feel it. And you can, and if we had more of our icons and our vets out there passing on their knowledge with which they try to do all the time, depends on what rookie will let it soak in or actually listen, or if they're going to go on their own way and their own tangent. Because we've all been young once and we knew everything at one point, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But when you slow down and you actually take a breath, they're trying to show you how to save your body. They're trying to show you psychology, the build of it. It's like a good movie or show or a good date.
Mm-hmm.
You have your beginning, you have your mid, and you have that big finale. But a lot of people don't know that feeling
Mm-hmm.
because they've never been in the ring with somebody that could show them.
Mm-hmm. And
to try to learn that after everything else that they learn, that it's hard to kind of go backwards and it is forwards.
Yeah.
So
I can understand that, but here's what I don't understand. I could understand, the history to the present in Colorado, where everything gets passed along. That's why we have the style here. But the thing I don't understand is when you look at a WWE,
right,
how did they go from the style that once was to where they are today? Because it's two different animals.
It is.
I
don't know. But watching them go through, I mean, you look at the Medusa and the Sherry Martels, they went from all that and in the past for women that were trying to wrestle in the industry. Then they went all to the Barbie dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong. There was a set in place and ratings and everything else. There's a purpose for our industry, right? And then they want the girls to do both, and they would try to make both happen if they would fall through. Then you had women that could look like that and that could work and had a talk. I mean, it's just interesting to watch how the women have been viewed and used and what they've been able to do and where it is today.
Can I share your honest opinion on something? And this isn't like it wouldn't be buried. We're not talking about individuals or anything like that.
Okay.
It's not that. In your gut, see, to me, Nikita, when I sit down with you, you're a professional wrestler. When I see you work, you're a professional wrestler. The way you carry yourself, I feel I'm in the presence of a professional wrestler. I've been around a lot of the younger people today. I get like I'm in the presence of somebody that wants to be a wrestler. Like there's a big difference. Do you think it's going in the right direction? Or do you think, like, I mean, I believe we need to go back to it. I think we got so far away from the roots of professional wrestling, what the object of professional wrestling was, what professional wrestling was built on. I feel we've gotten so far away from the foundation, we've lost our way. Do you think it's going in the right direction, or what would you do different? What would you do differently?
For me, I think I love what the girls are able to do, but I still believe in slowing things down and creating that build and that tension. Everything is a very faster pace, but like I said, it depends on, are you in Lucha Underground? Are you in WWE?
But is that because is what you're saying, Nikki? I think what you tell me if we're on the same page here. When you say, I hear so many veterans, and I'm on board. Slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. I think here's why we say slow it down. When it's at that faster pace, I don't think you can have a faster pace match and psychology,
right?
Because there's no time to think about it, right? So like when you say slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, are you talking about more is it the same thing, or is it two different things?
When I say slow it down and for a build, I mean if I'm doing, I mean, this is just a personal preference for myself personally and what my capabilities are. It's not how many, everybody works different, but for me, I like the build up to a high spot, and I was taught that way, and groundwork, and then building it up to that peak. If a girls match only gets 5 minutes, 6 minutes, there's not much that if I'm going to do 5 high spots, there's not going to be enough time for the build and everything. So you have to figure out a TV, and everything comes into factors with all this. I like psychology. I love it. You go back to like Jake the Snake Roberts. You look at a lot of people that, the psychology was so intense, you could bite into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with a lot of our icons, we don't have the icon. We don't have enough icons anymore. That's heart-wrenching. There's people that are fantastic and they're making great names for themselves, but do we technically have another Medusa anymore? Do we have, people that have made some serious marks? And yes, there's new marks being made in its own for this day and age, but for past psychology, the build, that's what I knew from everything that was passed on to me with all my training knowledge. And I was very happy that I learned that way.
Who did you work with that had the best ring psychology?
I would have to say Jimmy Cornette.
Physically. I mean, match-wise.
Match-wise.
And I agree with you on Cornette, by the way. No, I agree with you on Cornette.
Because he could take anybody.
I agree with you.
He could hide people's weaknesses and bring out their strengths. Yeah. And for the way matches and the way his mind worked was fantastic.
I agree 1,000%.
Paul Heyman, same way.
Right.
We have a lot of fantastic minds in the industry, all with different views.
Mm-hmm. Who are you in the ring with?
In the ring with best psychology. Veteran or it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Well, one of the easiest people that I love to work with, that I had a lot of fun, and we didn't have to do a whole lot, but we had everybody eating out of the palm of our hands, was little Miss ODB herself.
Oh, the best. The best. She was good from a psychologist point of view.
She's great.
Because I never looked at her from that aspect. I always looked at the character is so over the top. I never looked at, wow, that's great ring psychology.
But if you look at it, she didn't have to do all the crazy.
That's right.
She could get it in for somebody else, but she didn't have to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And her character stood alone. She was just fun on a psychology point and something that's up to date from past. I can go to Medusa all day long.
Yeah.
With a lot of things.
There might not have been. It's hard to say. There was some great.
Also,
she
was
awesome.
another.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know when I worked with ODB at TNA, I think she might have had a little. I think ODB and I was very close with the beautiful people, And I think ODP like wanted to believe, oh, Vince wants to put the blondes on TV. I think she wanted to believe that. That wasn't true.
I think
I've had her
majority
on
of
the
people
show.
believe that no matter
Bolin.
what.
Yeah, I have had her on the show, but every
Right.
time, every time I keep in mind, I was the booker man
Right.
that could make or break careers, even though I was never that guy. Every time I would pass in the hallway, catering, wherever it may be, you know what she used to do to me? She used to look at me, go, these nuts, like this. Can you imagine? ODP. All right, listen, I got to do one more ad.
Okay.
Then I want to ask you something about psychology.
Okay.
All right. Okay, here we go. All right, we are going to talk about DraftKings.com because if you're the ultimate MMA fantasy fan, you know all the fighters' strengths and their weaknesses. Now it's time to put that knowledge to the test and experience the excitement of fantasy MMA during this weekend's epic fight card at DraftKings.com. DraftKings is a destination for daily fantasy sports where you can win huge cash prizes every time you play. Square off against your fellow MMA fans and play to win over $100,000 in prizes this weekend. Just pick 5 fighters, stay under the salary cap, add and rack up points based on how your team's fighters perform. Outscore the competition and win big. As if watching MMA wasn't enough already, go to DraftKings.com now, where every strike, takedown, submission, and knockout brings you closer to a payday. Millions of sports fans just like you have discovered the magic of DraftKings. Now it's time for you to cash in on the action. Hurry to DraftKings.com now to choose your fighters, and you could seriously cash in this Saturday night. Use code Vince and play free with your first deposit. That's code word Vince, V-I-N-C-E, to play free for your shot at over $100,000 in prizes only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. Eligibility restrictions may apply. See website for details. All right, you may not like this one question, but I have to ask you.
So I get to punch you in the face?
Yes.
I like it? Sweet.
Yes.
I'll make it good.
This is where, like, you got to understand something. This is where, like, there is, how do I put this? There's different pages, okay? Because as a writer,
Right.
there are certain things I'm interested in. So, like, if I'm interviewing you as a wrestler, there are certain questions I really am interested in as a writer to get in the head of a wrestler.
Right.
Okay. On the other side of the coin, I know you're old school, and I know you love and believe in tradition, which I do too.
Right.
And I also know too, like, you try to protect kayfabe as much as you possibly can.
I still believe in creating magic.
Okay. Okay. Because here's a question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm not going to give you a specific thing that happened because then we'll be breaking kayfabe. Okay. So let me put it to you this way. I'm a writer. So obviously I'm looking for ratings. And that's where there's always the conflict of interest. A wrestler is looking for that great wrestling match. I mean, that's what you train for. You want that great match. I understand that. The writer has a completely different mindset because the writer knows there is an audience that loves that great match, but there's also an audience that loves story and characters and may not be watching for the match. So, like, the writer, like, has to look at all things. So if I'm booking a match with Nikita and she's got a character on the show,
Okay.
that because the storylines have led to this now, but the character on the show is a non-wrestler. Okay. But now you have to have a match with this character on the show because I booked the match because the story is dictating it and people want to see it now. Okay. You're the veteran. I know, okay, Nikita's got to lay out this match. When there's a novice, and you've been in this situation, that's what I'll put. I'm not going to mention about specifics. When you're put in there with a novice for a story and ratings and whatnot, like, where do you start? Like, first of all, let me ask you this. Like, is there heat, like, with the writer, like, God, man, you know, this is, I'm a wrestler. I mean, this is what I do. They're putting me in the ring with somebody that's never wrestled in their life. Does it start there? Is there any of that? And then if there is, but then it sets in, okay, regardless of whether I like this or not, I still have to lay this out and make it look good. How do you craft that with somebody that's not a wrestler?
Are you contracted or non-contracted in this scenario?
But in other words, like I think there is an art to making somebody else look good. A lot of people don't understand that.
For to combine both what you're saying from the writing and the wrestling perspective, and to make sure everything is flow, because you're saying it from your perspective and the wrestler's looking at it from theirs. I think the one thing that ties it is just emotion. Emotion is how if I'm working with, and if you want me to mention his name,
I do if you want to.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Titus.
Okay.
Titus, who I wrestled for Milestone 6. I had great concern. I know he's not a wrestler. I was worried about him taking any falls. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of times that you say suck it up, but when somebody's carrying some heavy weight, or you don't want them to get hurt.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if I'm supposed to be the one taking care of them, to make it make sense. And there's a lot of I didn't really have to call anything. It was more of the feeling and flowing, and he was easy to work with. He really was.
Obviously it's safety first.
It is safety first.
But how do you know, like how would you know what he's capable of doing and not doing? Like, how do you set the parameters?
Keep it simple, stupid is probably my number one go-to. Because if somebody can't handle some of the simple things in this industry, they shouldn't be doing some of the more intense and bigger moves or anything else. And if we don't have our basics and our fundamentals down, we don't have anything. And with anybody new or somebody that doesn't know how to work, or, and you have concern with that, I mean, there's obviously some hard lessons and there's some easy lessons, but with Titus, it was one of those that a lot of it was just improvising and the feeling and feeding off of each other. Now, I did try to get him into the ring to see what he was capable of, how fast he could get up and down, and how bad it hurt him, killed his knees back, whatever, how many injuries did he have, so forth. And he was terrified. But unfortunately, at one point, I would say I made him do things over. And if you're going to be in there, I'm not going to have you just do it once and then go, oh, I know everything, and we can just do it the day of. I'm not that way. I don't want you to get hurt. And that is why we do things repetitive over and over and over again. Titus, we really didn't have to, like I said, lay out a whole lot. I mean, I just wanted to make sure I could do the best that I could to make him look as strong and as spectacular as he could, without getting hurt. And he performed at a great level, and I hope he's happy with it. That was my main thing. And he was at least nice enough to still get in the ring and work with me and be able to pull that off.
Yeah. Nikita, here's one of the things like that drives me crazy about wrestling. And you've hit on this a couple of times. Like, just sitting here having this conversation with you. First of all, I don't know. I got to walk a tightrope here with Nikita. I know what gets Nikita hot sometimes.
Oh, do you?
I don't know. Nikita, like, I don't.
Still playing
Nikita, you're not retired, are you? Just answer me that. You're not. Are you retired? Are you semi-retired? Like, I'm asking you this question for this. Here's why I'm asking you the question. No doubt in my mind. You recently worked this show in Omaha. I saw your work.
Those guys were a lot of fun.
There's plenty of room. There's plenty of gas left in the tank. Okay, without question, there's plenty of gas in the tank. So, like, I don't know where you are as far as actively still wrestling. This is the reason why I'm bringing this up. Is this? I sit here with you, and it's like, man, I know the freaking knowledge and the understanding of the business, and then I'll look at today's product. I'll look at the WWE and just the way, like, some things are being laid out. And I'm like, who the hell is booking this shit? Pardon my expression. Not because it's a good idea or a bad idea, mostly because a lot of the times it just doesn't make sense. And I think there are so many people like you in that category that are like on the outside looking in, and I know instantly if hired to do that, wrestling would improve overnight, instantly.
I appreciate that. That's a very high compliment. Thank you.
But that's got to frustrate you, no? Like how I don't understand. How does that happen? How can you sit here and I'm sitting here like listening to you and learning from you, but yet there are nimrods as they like, I don't understand. Is that frustrating to you? Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean,
you're such a reason. What Medusa? What about Medusa? Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
What's the problem? I don't understand.
I still love the idea. And I think, I mean, they have the NXT Performance Center, but I loved seeing the way OVW developed the talent. I mean, we were watching tapes, playbacks, immediately trying to figure out, how to improve right there. Breakdown of things, psychology, different way of doing things. Everybody that brought everything to the table in there. It was just a different way of doing it. It wasn't, I mean, yes, we have blowout drills and things like that. I haven't been in NXT, so I can't compare, but I do know that they have a lot of, they're conditioning a lot of athletes, which is fantastic, keeping people in shape and on their toes and in the best peak performance overall, which is definitely needed because, without one, you don't have the other. And sometimes sometimes the pass would kind of fall on that too. But I think without, I mean, I really don't know because I haven't trained with them. I guess, like Sam Udell or somebody that's been there, or like even Dozer right now, Nico, he's out there and living it. And it's just so different from where I was at and having all that knowledge consistently. They have it, but like I said, they have, I just haven't trained with them. So I can't say where, would that be something you'd want to do? I do love, I will tell you that I do love teaching. I have a love-hate for the business, and I do love teaching though. Just anything that I've learned from Ohio Valley Wrestling, if anybody can take even a smidgen of it and take it and run with it. I'm not the best in the world, that's for sure. I'm just trying to, if they can take something and run with it and make it make sense and use it to benefit their knowledge and skill level and to help themselves, that's all that matters to me. But it's amazing. We look at what we had to learn the hard way. And if we were lucky to get a videotape to play, like how many weeks later, if somebody happened to record it, where they can immediately take it from their phone, videotape, play it back and go, that's what I'm messing up. Let's get back in and let's do it again, and be able to see what they're doing right away. I think that immediate knowledge that way, they can learn so much so fast, but without the vets and the skill and the experience and the feeling and the emotion, this stuff's not going to mean anything without the emotion. And that's the part that's getting lost. And it's an art. And everyone says it's a dying art, and it's because it is. When I teach promos, that's the first thing I say. The words, everybody's memorizing their words, memorize it. I'm like, the words don't matter. It's how you say the words. It's the emotion. It's the words don't matter. It's the same thing. Right. Yeah. Do you think it's possible? You said something that cracked me up a couple of minutes ago. A love-hate relationship with the rest of the. Is it possible? Because I'm the same way. I mean, absolutely. I think it's impossible to have been or be in the wrestling business and not have a love-hate relationship with it. I think it's impossible. I don't know anybody that just had an easy ride all the way from day one to, retirement. I don't know anybody like that. And and each path is a little bit different. And, think of how many people you've met across your way that were on their darkest that you might never want to talk to again. Then later you find out that they were going through their dark time and they're actually pretty good now. Yeah. I mean, there's high and peaks for everybody. And I think that makes a huge difference on the way people work together as well. Yeah. It's not, and as you know, also with the business, it's you're all together and you're trying to develop something and work together. As you know, there's, we've got the drama, we've got the egos, you've got, experienced and non-experienced. You've got the people there. How come so and so is getting a push and I'm not getting a push, and you know, and stirring it all up. I mean, of course, stuff's going to unfold.
Yeah.
Relationships, I think, are still probably one of the hardest too in the industry. How anybody can hang on to some of those relationships is very tough.
Yeah. Now, my dog's licking my hand as I do this intro. That's how we roll here. Very professional atmosphere. Now, Nikita, I think you're a little nervous. We don't know if we want to do this. If there was a little begging involved, that was painless.
It was
fun.
It was okay.
Insightful. Okay. What do you mean okay? What do you got of your mind? What okay? You got to put me over on my own show.
I wasn't anticipating it, but yes, it was nice.
Awesome.
It was lovely. Yes,
Awesome.
Yes. Awesome.
All right.
Should I say copacetic?
Copacetic.
All right.
The great Nikita LeFleur.
Thank you. One last thing, because you asked if I was retired.
Yeah.
I still have some things in this tank.
Right. I said that. Thank you.
I have one thing on the bucket list. There was somebody that had put a bug in my ear on a very exciting experience, and it was actually to wrestle in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was against somebody I already wrestled with in OVW, and I was so ecstatic about it because I'm like, if this goes through, this would be fantastic, and I'd feel satisfied. Unfortunately, it did not go through, and I made a vague statement with my picture at my regular job, talking about how something didn't go through. And I didn't have not just one, but I had two individuals that contacted me and said, "Hey, what's going on?" on a private message. I'm like, "Oh, nothing. This booking just didn't go through." And I was kind of looking forward to it. It felt really good. And they're like, "Oh, Japan, that's all you needed?" And now, next thing you know, there's some things in the works, and I don't know how to feel about that because that's a whole different ballpark. And with me this late in the game, but I will tell you that is something that overall would be fantastic to feel. I haven't experienced that, and I think it would be one heck of an experience, that's for sure. And that is something that's still on my list, along with doing some fun shows and things in between, and also teaching. But that is on the list.
What happens if I booked you versus Vince Russo at Rocky Mountain Pro? Are you in? I go over. We're on last, though. We're on last. I go over. We're on last. You go over.
I don't think you want any of that.
No, I don't. I'd be afraid. I'd be very afraid.
You should.
Yeah. Well,
you think I'm scary in the ring, outside the ring?
Well, let's I know that. Okay, listen. There she is, everybody. The great Nikita LeFleur. Listen, I really appreciate it. You came last minute.
Thank you.
I know you were a little hesitant because I know you're low.
You never know what's coming.
You never know. I know you're protected. I know you're low profile. I thank you for trusting me because I thought this was a great interview.
Thank you.
I love just getting in the freaking head of somebody, who literally just came up through the system when, to me, like wrestling was wrestling to me. If you think wrestling is wrestling today, that's great. But to me, when wrestling was wrestling.
You asked a lot of hard questions because there's so many greats, and it's hard because sometimes it depends on the feeling that you have on which one you're going to bounce to.
Yeah.
But I could definitely get some names, that's for sure.
Yeah.
From past to present.
So your return on the show, you're saying your comeback return. Maybe when you do the Japan trip, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right. There you have it, everybody. All right, everybody. The great Nikita LeFleur. Thanks for joining me.